Okay, so long story short, new Kirsche video. This one's 4 hours and 37 minutes and 50 seconds about Sherm. This is going to be an absolute banger, but I'm not watching it here on stream for the simple fact that it will kill me. I tend to provide a lot of commentary when I give reaction videos, and uh, d- I would not survive this. So I'm just going to have to take notes on the side and maybe talk about this at some other point. Uh, but so instead, we're going to do a more manageable thing, and I'm going to keep this up just so that when everything is done, I can remember to watch that after stream. Hopefully, I can get at least two different videos, maybe three videos in. But we're going to start with a leaflet video because I felt this in my bones when it came out because I was like, I remember this from back in the day. I remember being alongside like Sargon of Akkad on this particular issue. I wasn't exactly outspoken online about it because I didn't exactly speak a lot about things out online at the time. But I remember being and showing like friends and family, some of the evidence on the Wayback Machine. I was like, yeah, this is really like it's not definitive proof, but it's really fucking suspicious to be perfectly honest. And yeah, uh, apparently my main thing with this still is that in this particular case, unlike with the Epstein case, where we actually have people who've come forward and confessed to being not confessed to being victims, well, yes, that who've come forward and told their story about how they were being victims. And in this particular story, we don't have anyone who came forward to be victims. That is potentially explainable, though. We will talk about that during the video. I've seen part of this, haven't seen the whole thing. So let's go.
Oh my god, 2017. 27. I'm telling you guys, this is old shit.
Hold on. I forgot to turn this up.
Isn't that crazy that all of this shit is old? All of this Pizzagate shit was old, like 10 years ago. And now everyone's like, oh shit, maybe it's real.
And it was buried really fucking quickly, even though it's like, look, you didn't have any proof abs in the absolute sense that it was happening. But it's one of those things where it's like there was a lot of circumstantial evidence of really bizarre behavior around people in this of interest in this particular story. Uh just we'll get to that when we get there.
This is news reporter Ben Swan. He aired the Pizzagate segment on January 2017, leading to a suspension. He was fired on 2018.
Pizzagate. It became a major story weeks ago when an armed man decided to investigate a D.C. area pizza place for himself.
Oh, yeah. That's what happened. I remember that. People were going there to try to figure out what happened because, like, nobody would look into it. So, like, individual like people, and this is back when YouTube wasn't as crazy, right? I mean YouTube was kind of kicking out, but it's not like you didn't have like Nick Shirley and
To be fair, all the social media platforms kind of changed their rules in response to, at least partly in response to this particular thing. This wasn't like the QAnon stuff, which was obviously a 4chan troll from the fucking get go. Like I had people I knew who fell for that, and I was like, you were being taken for a ride, my guy. But this was definitely different. There were actually like you could be reasonable in both believe or doubt this particular situation at the time. Um, but yeah, it was definitely very quickly brushed under the rug when it was in real time at the time in 2017.
Tyler Oliver. You didn't have like that kind of shit going on, right?
And yeah, to be fair, there was more trust in the media back then. I don't know. We were as a culture learning that gradually that the people in the media are largely a bunch of paid shills, not to tell us the truth of a situation, but to sell us a story. I mean, nowadays it seems obvious, but everyone kind of had to learn that over time. It's not something that was immediately obvious to everyone. And if anyone tells you that it was immediately obvious, they're lying to you because they want to save face.
So individual people would go there trying to like investigate what was happening.
This man right here.
Yeah, and bringing a gun to the establishment was not exactly the brightest thing. Now I don't know if this was a false flag situation. Could be. Maybe it was real. It's entirely possible, given the things that were alleged. It's entirely possible someone went over there, to do this of their own accord. It's also entirely possible it could have been, designed to bury the situation. I don't know the specifics of this particular situation, so if anyone wants to clue me in on like the police report, that would be great. But this was, yeah, this is why you don't do vigilante activity, because it usually ends up helping like the side that you're trying to fight against.
He carried a rifle into a pizza parlor and then fired it at the floor. Media is telling you the entire story is a hoax or fake news. But what does that even mean? I spent the last month in.
I mean, to be fair, fake news is the primary news. Like some of the things that the primary news say is actually true, but considering how easy it is for them to lie, it's just much easier to regard them as liars because let's be fair, that's exactly we. I remember someone can. Oh my god, I remember the one protest uh, of like the small group of Muslims in New York who were protesting years ago, and they're interviewing this one woman, but they're doing it at an angle that obscures how few people are actually there to make it look like there's more people. So they're filming this at an angle, and I remember the irony of the shirt that this woman was wearing said "love" written in weapons. It was like a fucking jackknife for the L. The O was a hand grenade. It's just like it, it was a little it was a little fucking absurd. I'm not gonna lie, and it was very clearly staged, and it ended up turning out to be staged because someone in the production facility actually leaked the rest of the video, which showed how few people. It was like maybe 20 people there. It wasn't exactly a large gathering, but
Investigating. So what exactly is Pizzagate? And are there any actual facts to support the story? I've got to warn you, what we're going to talk about tonight will be disturbing to some people, but this is a reality check you won't see anywhere else. Pizzagate actually comes from the WikiLeaks release of hacked emails from Clinton campaign chairman John Podesta.
now that's the first sign that it is a legitimate and reliable leak. WikiLeaks has a fucking immaculate track record, to be perfectly honest. They actually have a history of vetting the information that comes into them. So they don't just randomly, willy-nilly publish anything that, is sent to them. They actually try to make sure that the things that they're publishing actually correspond to something in the real world. So if WikiLeaks is going back, is backing this up, that's immediately a green flag to me of there is probably something here, to be perfectly honest.
This was from the Podesta stuff, yeah.
WikiLeaks dumped around 50,000 email messages, and it was from those emails that the claims that John Podesta...
Wait, isn't this when they went after, what's his name? Yup, they went after fucking Julian Assange after this shit.
Maybe...
I mean, to be fair, he was in trouble already with a lot of powers. It's just if I remember correctly, I think she is right that they did definitely ramp up the pressure against him. Because make no mistake about it, there's a lot of people who, in global geopolitics, would probably want Assange to disappear. Uh, publishing state secrets is not exactly it doesn't exactly make you friends to state governments.
Part of a child sex trafficking ring come from. To be clear, not one single email in the Podesta emails discusses child sex trafficking or pedophilia. That is a fact. But
chat, were you?
I mean, explicitly per se, but that's exactly the issue that's up for contention. Like, obviously, everyone at some point has used coded language in order to obscure what they're talking about. And usually the coded language is pretty simple. And usually, even if it's just like kids, talking in pig Latin, that is still a basic form of encryption. But it's not exactly unheard of for people doing nefarious things and people even just who care about their own privacy to sometimes encode information to make it less to make it less conspicuous. But if you're going to run an organization like this, you would be kind of stupid. You would be cartoonishly stupid to speak openly and plainly about the things that you're doing because of how highly illegal it is. You know, presumably you don't want to go to jail. So a way you would obfuscate that is to use coded language, and coded language isn't as hard to do as people think it is. Like there's degrees of difficulty with coded language, and the whole purpose of like language employed by groups that often engage in criminal activity is there has to be some degree of obfuscation and deniability. So an expectation that you could interpret information a different way than what is actually being said to the person that you're talking to. So it's that esoteric exoteric distinction I've talked about beforehand. It's not as sophisticated oftentimes as the discussions that people on the left have with their esoteric exoteric distinction, but it, more people than just politics use that distinction.
Aware of my power level? Did you know that I knew all of this shit? I knew all this shit the whole time.
There are dozens of what seem to be strangely worded emails dealing with pizza and handkerchiefs. Self-described online investigators say that those words in the emails about pizza and the talk of handkerchiefs is code language used by pedophiles. So how did a DC pizza parlor get pulled into the story? Well, again, read any mainstream report and they indicate that Comet Ping Pong Pizza was somehow linked to this fake.
What like, how about that, haters? How about all the Leaflit is a grifter people? How about that, huh?
Story.
Yeah. Another thing I guess we should cover right now, because again, people were called crazy for caring about this stuff. But it's a thing that we talked about last time, was like they don't call you these things because they actually think you are these things. They call you these things so they can justify what you do, what they do to you. You know, that's what they do when they call you like a Nazi or a white supremacist or a white nationalist or a bigot or a what would be a another there's another, or turf is another one that they call people, that the hopes that someone will end up hurting them reputationally at the very minimum. Another way that these individuals oftentimes, even if it's just useful idiots, by the way, so it's not always in, not everyone's conscious about doing this when they do it, but this is the function of doing this, is oftentimes people will call someone crazy or call them unhinged, not because the individual actually is crazy or unhinged, but because they don't want to deal with what is being said, so they out of hand dismiss them in the first place. And there's a lot of reasons for this. Like obviously, the two main reasons people might do this are maliciousness, and to be perfectly honest, the other one is a defense mechanism. They're both form of the different forms of defense mechanisms. So obviously, if you're involved in something like this, or you are involved in a network that's involved with something like this, you would like to call this crazy because you want to dissuade people from looking into this. So you poison the well by signaling to people that concern about this is unreasonable, and in fact, it's actually anti-rational. Uh, it's crazy. The other way you would do this, the other reason you might do this, is if it's too painful a thing to look at. And this happens all the fucking time when it comes to like human behavior and doing things. When people do bad things, people want to dehumanize the evil person. I was like, no, no, the evil person is just as evil as you are. Not evil, is just as human as you are. But and you do have an you do have an evil inclination in you. Every single one of us is capable of doing things that we didn't think we were capable of doing. And if you don't think you are, you might want to do some deep introspection. Uh, but yeah, so and the reason people do this is because it's really difficult for a lot of people to accept that that person, that monster down the street, actually shares the same fundamental human nature as we do. And I think that this is one of the things, not just from like the trauma of the experience. I do think one of the things that magnifies PTSD when it comes to like encountering people who've done incredibly evil things. I'm talking like clinical PTSD is, and I'm not the only one who suggested this. There have been some psychologists who have pondered on this idea as well. That part of the horror that engenders the PTSD is the realization, even if it's subconscious realization. So it's not surface level, but it's at least shadow level, that the person I'm looking at who's done this thing is the same kind of being in species. So in kind, again in kind, that I am. And it goes back to that old phrase, therefore, but the grace of God go I. So And I think a lot of people have a very difficult time dealing with this particular fact. And to say, and that's why I don't really like people dehumanizing evil people. They're still human, and that's exactly what should be horrifying about it. Is that they share the same nature we do, and we are capable of doing things way worse than we in moral society really think we really would like to think that we're capable of. But we are still capable of that, and that's what makes discipline and virtue, kind of important because it's a way to actually wrestle the inner monster to become good. It's that whole Nietzschean phrase of when you cast out your demons, be sure not to cast out the best of yourself in the process. Uh, you know, I think Jordan Peterson said that there's no such thing as a good man. Is a monster. I think he said something along those lines, and yeah, it's true. Unless you have the ability to do something monstrous, unless you have power, in what way, shape, or form are you actually good? Powerlessness is not a good thing. That's not a virtue. So, a virtue is a medium, a means, the in between two extremes. So, Aristotle, right? So, anyway, let's. I do think that that's the one of the reasons why people do sometimes try to not address in full what has gone on with like the Epstein files and what may be going on here is again it just may be too disturbing for some people to handle, so then it's dismissed outright for exactly that purpose. It is too disturbing to handle. But so
and has no relation to anyone involved. But the truth is, that's not true either. What media is ignoring is that the Comet Ping Pong Pizza place is actually referenced in the Podesta
Yeah,
emails at least
Alephantis.
a dozen or
That
so
was
times.
a dude.
And that the owner of that place, James
Alephantis, yep.
is a friend of
Of Podesta.
I anyone who can speak French might want to take a look at his name and like say it out loud.
He
Yep.
was actually named, this is kind of strange, by GQ magazine as one of the top 50 most powerful people in Washington. Yes, we're talking about a pizza parlor owner. Now let's talk facts here. There is no solid evidence that Comet Ping Pong Pizza is being used to run a child sex trafficking ring. But there are some very strange connections between Comet Ping Pong Pizza and a second pizza place 2 doors over, Besta Pizza.
Yeah, again, it's the whole thing of like there's no linchpin. It's a cumulative case. And again, it is not necessarily proof beyond a shadow of a doubt, but it's evidence that something could very well be afoot. Even the thing that I pointed out just a moment ago about the name, I don't know if I don't know if that's the guy's real name or not, to be perfectly honest. But again, it's one of those things where it's like, okay, you put it together with everything else, and it starts to look suspicious. It could very well actually be the name he was born with. I don't fucking know. But at the same time, it could also be a pseudonym. I don't know who this fucker is. No, like there hasn't really been a in-depth investigation on this stuff. So it's one of those things where it's like, again, this needs to be investigated.
And the accusations of pedophilia.
Yup.
This is where things start to get strange when you research this story.
I have consistently, I actually have a copy of this FBI report, the one that they're referencing, on my computer, and I have on multiple occasions, when the subject matter has popped up, actually sent it to friends and family that I know have kids, so that they understand this. And in fact, funny enough, this fucking sign actually somehow popped up on the on the sidewalk of a place that I used to live back when I lived with my family. And my mother found the ring actually outside in the front yard near the sidewalk, and she's like, she brought it to me. She's like, "Hey, do you know what this is?" And I'm like, I don't know anything about rings, but I can look at it." And it wasn't this ring per se. It was really similar to this actually. Now looking at it, but if you were to take this symbol and flip it upside down so that it's up, down, in that repeating pattern, that's the ring that I ended up finding. That she found, and I had to tell her, I was like, that's a pedophile ring. That's a symbol for boy love. The people the people who want to molest young boys. I don't. Where did you get this? And that's when she told me she found it outside. Not a fucking clue where that ring came from, but yeah. Uh, since I actually maybe I can find the report because again I have this report on my computer, but I might be able to actually link the report to this symbols document from the FBI onto the comment section later. when I upload this. Hey, Road. Yeah, we're talking Leaflit. They're talking the Pizzagate files because I remember when this shit happened back in 2017, and my assessment at the time and still is more along the lines of Sargon's, where there's a lot of really fucking suspicious activity, but there's not exactly hard proof, and it's kind of suspicious that there are no alleged victims to come forward, like as we had with like the Epstein files. But there is possibly a way to explain this away. If I remember by the end of the video, I'll try to explain that part. But yeah, so we're on a bit more of a disturbing topic right now.
There it
To
is,
begin,
the
I need to
fucking
show you a
thing, the
2007
symbol.
unclassified FBI document. That document, according to the FBI, contains commonly used symbols by pedophiles to express their preference in children. I want you to see these images here. These are the images. Notice this one on the triangle. That image signifies something called boy love. The pizza place next door to Comet Ping Pong Pizza, Best of Pizza.
Look at that shit.
Well, this was their logo until only.
Now, granted, I get where Leaf is coming from, but I could also see this symbol be rediscovered completely on accident. Like, I could see someone just doodling and then think, oh, a spiral is like a circle, and we can do a spiral with a square, so why can't we do a spiral with a triangle? It's not hard proof. You would need something, to actually prove that this is being used this way. But at the same time, I can't deny that flags go off in my head when I see this because I already have the prior association with the FBI document that we were talking about earlier. So, again, it's one of those things where it's like, it's really fucking fishy and it helps to make a cumulative case, even if it doesn't actually prove without a shadow of a doubt the case that that we think is going on. I'm just noticing my hair color is like bleeding into
A
leaflets.
few weeks ago. Clearly, you can see that the Besta logo actually contains the same image.
Fucking coded language, man. These elites.
Lover image. Interestingly, after Pizzagate investigators pointed this out, Besta Pizza changed their logo, and there it is.
Look
now.
at that.
They removed.
Damn, ain't that crazy?
Also,
Again, I mean, because this became a real PR nightmare for the company, there is a potential innocent explanation of, oh shit, this signals something we're not trying to say, so let's change the logo and salvage our reputation. That being said, there could also be a nefarious explanation for this particular decision, which is, oh shit, the cat's out of the bag, we need to hide everything, so we need to change it. Again, there should have been an actual investigation and not just dismissal of this particular case, because it just makes everything ambiguous. And I can't really blame people for being a bit conspiracy minded about this, because there very well could be an actual legit conspiracy involved in all this.
So Comet Ping Pong, owned by Alphantis, is the place where a number of performance artists perform regularly. Two of the groups that perform there, who you can see advertised, by the way, on this Comet Ping Pong poster.
So I gotta so they're talking about artists here, and yes, artists can be transgressive and fucking morons at times. I grew up in an art family, and I've had to deal with the art community because my family helped local artists in the community. So I've met a bunch of idiots before. There was one particular case where we ended up having a local band, and the music that they played was fine. It wasn't the music itself wasn't that bad, but it also wouldn't be something that I would write home about, to be perfectly honest. And they got a little bit too transgressive towards the end of the fucking performance that they had, and I don't know what the fuck goes through people's heads when they say this kind of shit, but like at the end of the performance, they just came out and they just came out and the lead singer just like screamed at the top of his lungs, "We love little girls," and I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with this guy? But and we didn't know he was going to do that at the time, and we were basically all of us were like, yeah, we're not hiring them for the next event. That was fucking absurd. But in this case, these are recurring performers. That's tacitly different if it's a recurring problem, and then you're not nipping it in the butt again.
Oh my god, dude, I remember, and like one of them was like a drag queen, and it was like weird. Like the shit that they were doing was weird.
Include a group called Heavy Breathing and another group called Sex Stain. Well, if you check out the YouTube videos by these bands, Heavy Breathing has songs that do joke about pedophilia, and the band Sex Stain has a video.
And yeah, there's the thing, which again, if they're actively joking about it, it would make sense that they would use the symbols therein. But it's that thing I said again. It's like depending on who's making the joke will change the meaning and the context of the joke. You know, if someone like if a pacifist makes a joke about serial killers, that's one thing. But if someone who actually has a history of serial killing makes a joke about serial killers, uh, it comes off a little bit uh, iffy. And again, it's like it all depends on again on how the joke is made. So it could very well be that this is a joke and they're just being transgressive and taking the piss out of it. It is in this case, if that is the case, not very well made as a joke. To be perfectly honest, it is not very funny. But it's also entirely possible that someone could be using humor as a shield for bad behavior. This happens all the fucking time. Where, for example, on the left, you have the issue of people saying things that are extremely violent, and then when the right gets pissed about it, quote unquote the left, quote unquote the right, then they're like, "Oh, I thought you were for jokes." When everyone can tell what they're doing, it's not a joke. They're using that as a method of gaslighting to make you feel like you're going crazy when everyone fucking knows what they're doing. Um, so,
Oh, that
I seen those videos and look at that. What is that? What is that chat? You see that in the back? See that shit in the back?
yeah, this was a very unsettling art project in my personal opinion.
includes, and you see it right there, that same boy lover symbol. It's nearly identical to the one that the FBI does say is a pedophile code symbol for boy love.
How many of these are they going to have? I don't know about you guys, chat. You don't really see this that much, especially as like a triangle. You know what I mean? Like maybe a circle, like a spiral, but like you don't really see it as a triangle often. You don't
Again, the thing is, like, again, very simple designs can be rediscovered on accident. And Leaflit, again, as I said, she has a point. This is not something that comes up very often in like geometric redesigns, but it's also simple enough that I could see it popping up again in a particular, like being rediscovered in an innocent context. That is part of the danger of these particular signs. Is like they do very clearly have a meaning. This has this signals very bad things happening, and it is that whole thing of again, it's simple enough that it could be rediscovered. Is that plausible deniability that organizations that have these criminal, like, activities oftentimes leverage? Just like as we were talking about, they use obscurative language in order to cover what they're actually doing. That is by design.
see that often.
I I'm pretty sure, obviously, in this particular situation, it means exactly what you think it means because of the FBI document, and that's kind of the point. Because allegedly, this entire thing is like out of allegedly taking the piss out of pedophiles, and so it would actually fit in a joke like that. But again, I don't think that this video and this art project was very well put together. If it is a joke, it didn't land. So
When you said aloud English accent James Elephantis, oh my god.
yep, there it goes. I remember pointing that out to a friend of mine.
God, you're right. James Elephantis, j'aime les enfants. Oh my god, that's true.
I remember there also. I don't know if it was scrubbed from the Wayback Machine, but I remember there being. I think it was like a Wayback Machine record of an Instagram page which actually had, like, it was tied to all this nonsense, but it had someone in a shirt with the actual French like phrase she just said on it. So it's like it wasn't exactly subtle.
J'aime les enfants means I love children in English, in French. That's crazy. That's crazy if that's real. Damn, that's crazy. I didn't even think about that one. That one I didn't know about.
I said, there are some strange things there. As for the owner of the pizza place, James Alfantis, well, he was one time in a relationship with David Brock, who ran Media Matters for America. Well, since Pizzagate began to blow up online, he has made his Instagram
Chat, this is from 2017. And it was like, and there's a lot of shit in it of this in the file. Dude, no wonder they don't want the files to come out. Holy fuck.
profile, Jimmy Comet, private. But an archive search of Instagram reveals a number of strange photographs.
Yeah. So here, so what's gonna happen here? This is what they're gonna talk about. Is that they're all on like was it Instagram or Facebook? They're on like one of these like
It was Instagram.
kind of social media things, right? And what would happen is one of them would post like a really weird picture of like baby feet or something like that, and then you'd have a lot, you'd have a bunch of people like commenting like yum yum yum, looks delicious, just like weird shit like that, right? And then you have all of them start tagging each other on these like weird photos. Yeah, yeah. Or like somebody would post like a picture of like a kid, and then they would just like post, they would like reply with like lick or something like that, like something really fucking weird. And they'd be like lick, and then they would like add, and they would add a bunch of people, they like tag a bunch of people on it, and then it was just so weird. Yeah, like, I looked into all of this stuff too earlier. It was so weird.
There was also the another thing that she didn't bring up was there was also the use of a doll, which was it was one of those, like the kind of dolls that you get like for kids to play with, where they have the movable joints, but they have the hard plastic cover. I don't know what those are called. Anyway, I'm gonna have to look that up later. But it was the recurrent use of an infant doll, where it would be, it would be a picture of the doll, but then it would have like a price tag on it, and it almost looked like they were like it was a stand-in for a child being sold in, by the way the picture was staged. And there were people playing along with this in the Instagram comment section again, which is one of the reasons that Instagram got privated, was because it was really fucking bizarre. Um, and the wildest thing in that entire thing wasn't even the doll thing; it was the fucking walk-in freezer that had hashtag kill room on it. I don't know if they talk about this in there, but I distinctly remember that, and that I remember that being like, that's fucking wild. Um, Again, all kinds of weird shit was going on with this that was very easily verifiable based on, again, what was actually findable. And I'm pretty sure a lot of this is archived. I, I'd have to look at the archive again to see how much of it is actually like preserved. But well, I guess we'll just continue with this.
Words with strange and disturbing images.
You know what? Actually, I'm going to check to see if that name is real, because I don't know if that, because again, it's like, if Elephantis is a real name, it's entirely possible maybe James Elephantis is a real name. But if that's not a real name, that would lead to the idea that that was a pseudonym, you know, not a real name. But again, I don't know if the guy's name was real or if it was a pseudonym. There wasn't exactly an investigation into all this. It kind of just all got buried.
Like in plain sight, you know?
Look, to the point where we can't show you those pictures. We're not even going to describe them to you because some viewers would find it too disturbing to share on TV. Now,
Yeah, they were pretty fucking vile.
let's talk about the Podesta brothers, because remember, it was John Podesta's email that was hacked. In those leaked Podesta emails, John Podesta talks about his close relationship with Dennis Hastert, the former Speaker of the House, who was recently sentenced to 15 months in prison for abusing boys years ago. He was referred to by the judge as a serial child molester. According to the Washington Post,
Man.
Tony Podesta's home in Falls Church got an
Dude, Chad, isn't this crazy? How many of you guys are like, this is crazy shit? It's so crazy.
eyeful when they walked into a bed.
So this probably falls under cruel and unusual punishment, but just back in the Middle Ages, the punishment for a crime like this was actually to be stripped. Not well, I mean technically yes, stripped, but to be like chained to a wall with minimal slack, so you couldn't actually move. And the purpose of that was to, over time, atrophy your muscles and your bones. That way, when you were eventually released from your 15 months. Oh yeah, I, it yeah. A lot of weird shit was going on with this case, bro. A lot of weird shit. And again, if you look at like the Epstein stuff, Epstein got a sweetheart deal that was also really fucking bizarre, actually. But yeah, so yeah, with the medieval thing, the whole purpose was to keep the person alive, but not allow them to use their muscular skeletal faculties, because you use your muscles, they get stronger. You don't use them, they get weaker. If you don't put stress in your bones, they end up getting weaker. And the goal of that was to, by the end of the sentence, even if you were released, you would be so weak you would not be able to actually hurt anyone. And even if you were released, you were put on permanent house arrest anyway. So yeah, just neat little historical note that I remembered, talking about this. This is, with the Epstein thing, it is definitely we're going to need a bigger millstone. With this thing, it's we should have at least had an investigation for some of this stuff.
Bedroom at the Podesta residence hung with multiple
Thank
color
you, Paragon
pictures
Bobby. Thank
by
you.
Katie Grannon, a photographer known for documentary-style pictures of naked teenagers in their parents' suburban home. And to be
Yeah, I think you can still. I'm not going to because I don't really like looking at that kind of stuff. But I'm pretty sure the art in the Podesta house, which was very disturbing and had a lot of anti-human uh well, I'm an objectivist, so I think art has like an objective meaning outside of the artists themselves and the interpretation of the audience. I think that they're, you can actually get art right and wrong. It was a very anti-human art taste that he had. It often included things of like people in compromising positions, people being vulnerable, subject to an external power, so their fate isn't exactly their own, unable to make decisions for themselves. This literally one of the statues was suspended of a headless man in some, if I remember correctly, it was in like a jump, like mid jump, it was a headless man. So again, fully anti-human, and not to mention just grotesque, to be perfectly honest. Um, and yeah, let's just say it would be one of those things where it's like if I entered someone's house and I saw that, I would just immediately leave. I would not even fucking ask questions, kind of deal.
clear, that
But
just
but that's just me.
begins to scratch the surface of how strange some of this stuff is. And bear in mind, we can't get into a lot of the real details of it because of the limits on broadcasting this on television. But it is some very strange stuff. Now, keep in
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, there's also limitations on what you can do on Twitch, and I'm not poking that bear. I'm probably already poking a bear by talking about this at all on Twitch. But yeah,
mind, again, there is no proof here that there is a child sex ring being operated out of a D.C. pizza parlor. Investigators have already proven there's nothing to the story, right? Well, actually, no.
it depends on how you use the words. I mean, proof in the sense of like, again, proving that something has happened. No. Evidence, because evidence does not have to raise up to the standard of proof. It just means information that leads to one particular conclusion. Uh, there was evidence that something was going on, even if it was never explicitly proven.
And that's what you need to know. For all that is here, there has not been one single public investigation.
They can't. It's too
not from
scary.
local police, not from the FBI, and that has to be the big question. Not for Podesta or for pizza parlor owners, but for law enforcement. Based on what may be or may not be here, the big question is, why hasn't any investigation taken place? That's Reality Check. Let's talk about it on Twitter.
He was brave to air this shit.
Well, Pizzagate, it became a
That's so crazy. So this is like him now, right?
Are at the center of a child trafficking ring. But the child trafficking rings, run by some of the most powerful people in the world, do exist. Tonight,
So this video I definitely haven't seen. I didn't see the previous video either. But because I didn't really watch the news. I stopped watching the news a while ago. So like my news is mostly over online. So things like Jihad Watch and that stuff is stuff I pay attention to. But so so this is definitely going to be interesting. I would not have noticed this was the same guy as the other one.
I want to remind you of what I told you then. Compare that to what we have now learned.
Shit.
Pizzagate.
Wait, is this like
It
right
became
now?
a major story weeks ago when an
Oh my
armed man
God, he
decided
just
to
released
investigate a
this.
DC area.
Okay, hold on. I want to read that. Oh shit. Well, I'm retarded. Hold on. I gotta, let's see, zoom forward. Okay, where was this? Nope, a little bit too far. There. Okay, there we go. 10 years ago, Pizzago was by far the #1 trending topic on Twitter, but the claim of pedophile elites who preyed on children was so insane that Pizzagate was shrugged off as a wild fever dream of conspiracy theory. But then, just days ago, the largest dump of Epstein files revealed what some of us had been telling you for decades, that Pizzagate is real. Not that there is a pizza parlor at the center of child trafficking rings, but child trafficking rings run by some of the most powerful people in the world do exist. Tonight, I want to remind you of what I told you then and compare that to what we have learned now. Okay, so a bit of a slight nitpick about this. The Pizzagate scandal was essentially about powerful elites laundering money and trafficking children uh, through businesses like that's why it's called Pizzagate. Um, but yeah, so I would consider that as just from a definitional standpoint as a different, broader claim than the Pizzagate claims from 2017. Uh, it would be really fucking hard to argue against the broader claim because, again, of what was revealed in the Epstein files, it's kind of interesting. I also have to watch the Cyberwolf video because he talks about the connection between the Islamic polities and Epstein, which is not exactly surprising if you know anything about Islam. But yeah, so I would have a slight disagreement there, but I guess that entirely hinges on how you defined Pizzagate back in the day. I tend to define things more narrowly, so that might be a genuine area of like we just are using terms differently in this particular case.
Oh my God, he just released this.
DC area
He
pizza
just
place for
released
himself.
this.
This man right here, he carried a rifle into a pizza parlor and then fired it at the floor. Media is telling you the entire story is a hoax or
This guy must
fake
feel so
news.
vindicated,
What
man.
does that even mean? I spent the last month in
I mean, to be fair, anyone who thought I definitely feel like I was right to be suspicious about this, uh, especially everything that had come out since then. Because I was again of the opinion something is going on here. It's definitely unkosher. I don't particularly like it. It is haram. Something needs to be investigated, but I can't prove. It's literally that fucking meme from Dexter. I've never watched Dexter, so I only realized this meme came from Dexter like a week ago. Where it's like the detective guy who's just looking at Dexter, and he's the thought of I know, but I can't prove it, right? Like I have a sneaking suspicion a lot of us, Leaflit, me, like a lot of us were thinking that this entire time, and then now it's like, oh yeah, it turns out we weren't being crazy by being concerned about this. Who would have fucking guessed, right?
investigating. So what exactly is Pizzagate?
Well, the story that came to be known as Pizzagate did not begin with a rumor, nor was it created by Macedonian sheep farmers, as CNN actually once claimed.
That's a fucking wild claim too. Like you couldn't come up with a better story than to cover this than Macedonian sheep farmers. Fuck, honestly, outlandish to the point where I probably don't remember it because it probably just flew under the radar. I probably just straight up dismissed it at the time, and so that's why I don't remember this. But again, it's like Macedonian sheep farmers. What the fuck is this?
Began with WikiLeaks,
Yep.
authentic, verified emails taken from the phone of the chairman of Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign, John Podesta.
Yep.
Those emails were real. In all these years, by the way, no one has actually disputed that.
Dude, that bitch was almost
Inside
president.
Those emails were communications
Isn't that crazy?
that struck a lot of people, not just online.
Again, as much as I have to complain about the Republicans, let's be totally fucking honest. It would have been worse if it was the Democrats. That's my personal assessment. I have disagreements with both, but you know, there are degrees to disagreement and degrees to error and difference in degrees of intent. Sometimes you're wrong just because you have a misunderstanding, and sometimes you're wrong because you're actively malicious. Oftentimes, I find that my disagreements with people on the right are more along the lines of I just think we have a difference in facts. I don't think they actually mean anything harmful. And oftentimes disagreements, not always, but oftentimes with disagreements on the left, it ends up being that yes, the person that you disagree with actually hates you and wants to see you suffer. So, but yeah, no, it could have. If Hillary Clinton, in my opinion, had been president, I think it would have been way fucking worse.
Commentators, but researchers and former law enforcement as unusual to say the least. References to pizza.
Pickle.
And to
Pickle, thank you so much for the raid. Thank you. We are looking into some crazy shit. So like I knew about this shit a long time ago. And so it's really, really interesting to like watch it now again. Knowing what we know now is quite
pizza
interesting.
handkerchiefs and to maps, to private gatherings involving powerful people. Some very bizarre stuff. In fact, the first people to draw attention to those emails were a group of self-proclaimed pedophiles on 4chan and 8chan who claimed the Podesta was using the same terminology that they use to speak in coded language.
Oh shit.
I mean, 4chan is a wild fucking place because of that anonymity thing. You get all kinds of crazy shit. It's like the only place you could see that this kind of thing, confession coming out of, to be perfectly honest, because of the anonymity.
And in researching those emails, I found a 2010 entry into Urban Dictionary. It's still there, by the way. It confirms that cheese pizza is a commonly coded term for child pornography.
You just see these images here. These are the images.
Yeah, so this is like one of the ways, like this kind of I don't know if there's a technical term for this, but this is a common way of like obfuscating the terms used. Like in the army, for example, we use the word blue falcon to mean buddy fucker. You know, someone who screws over their battle buddies. And the way that we do this is we are putting meaning onto the initials of the term buddy fucker, BF, and then switching it out with something else to obscure the Everyone knows what you mean when you call someone a blue falcon. But again, it has to deal with the whole maintaining professionalism. So instead of calling someone a buddy fucker, you call them a blue falcon to, keep the air of professionalism. And yeah, this is a really simple way that people do all the time. It's one of the simplest ways to encrypt information is to take an initial and then switch out the words from the phrase you intend with a secondary phrase that doesn't relate to the phrase that you actually mean but shares the same initials. So
No.
this wasn't exactly like unknown at the time. You didn't exactly need special knowledge to know this particular information.
Notice this one on the end, the triangle. That image signifies something called boy love. The pizza place next door to Comet Ping Pong Pizza, Besta Pizza, was their logo until only a few weeks ago. Clearly you can see that the Besta logo actually contains the same image, I'm going to show you again, as that boy lover image. Interestingly, after Pizzagate investigators pointed this out, Besta Pizza changed their logo, and there it is now. They removed the triangle.
Yeah, 10 years ago, I was called a dangerous conspiracy
Yep.
theorist and a madman for claiming that pedophiles and possibly
Dude, he must
even
feel so.
pedophile elite
He must feel so vindicated. Thank you for Ben and Gabo Go for the bits. Thank you, dude. This guy must feel so vindicated. Like he got fucked over so hard.
I mean, to be fair, everyone who was concerned about this got gaslit into hell. About like, oh yeah, you're crazy. They tried to make you actually feel like you were going crazy for this, for believing that this could very well be the case. Even though, again, yeah, sure, we don't have we can't prove it per se, but there is enough evidence out there to be very fucking suspicious of what is going on. Again, it didn't rise to the level of proof at the time, but it was enough to set off flags.
might use coded language, even though it was online pedophiles who said that's exactly what they do. Which brings us back to this new Epstein release, because in it, the word pizza is mentioned 911 times. That's right, 911 times adults are emailing back and forth about slices of pizza and about pizza parties.
Yep.
And the word pizza is often paired with grape soda in bizarre contexts within emails addressed to Epstein by individuals whose names have been mostly redacted. So here's one. This is better than a Chinese cookie. Let's go for pizza and grape soda again. No one else can understand.
Look what.
Again, there's also this thing where it's like, obviously, it's astounding how stupid the people who get away with this stuff actually are. Because why in God's name would you put no one else can understand in there? Because you're very clearly signaling to someone who should know the code that you are using coded language. I mean, I could imagine someone eating pizza and grape soda. But once you understand that this is coded language, you understand that, again, the things that are being consumed are probably being used to refer to product that is being consumed that you don't want people to know about. And I guess I'll let you fill in the blank, because I don't think that this is all that hard to piece together what this probably means, just based on, again, background context. But yeah, this doesn't look like a normal email. People don't exactly. Who the fuck says this is better than a Chinese cookie? What does that actually refer to? I mean, I think you could probably piece it together from this what it is, but it doesn't sound like natural speech in any way, shape, or form, and that's kind of the point.
the fuck
Or
does
this
that
one.
mean?
Mr. Epstein would like to see the menu from the pizza place. Could someone send it, please? Or this one from 2014. Sit down, because I know you won't believe this. Are you sitting? Jeffrey says he wants to go out to a pizza place with you. He did not mention a particular pizza place, but he knows you are in the know.
Oh
on
my
this.
goodness. He did a little winky face
emoji.
too. A little winky face on it.
All of the emails that I just shared with you were from 2014.
Again, they didn't say specifically, but if you had red flags about a particular place and you saw that, again, cumulative case, it's not unreasonable to have red flags go off in your head and be suspicious about things happening.
Right about the same time period of the John Podesta emails that WikiLeaks published and started the entire Pizzagate saga.
Now let's talk about the Podesta brothers, because remember, it was John Podesta's email that was hacked. In those leaked Podesta emails, John Podesta talks about his close relationship with Dennis Hastert, the former Speaker of the House, who was
Literal
recently
free rent
sentenced to
demons,
15
dude,
months
for
in
real.
prison for abusing boys years ago.
Yeah, well, speaking of the Podesta brothers, again, there was no direct evidence of them being involved in child sex trafficking from those emails. But as we pointed out at the time, there was a lot of bizarre communication, including an email from John Podesta to his brother Tony.
Dude, all
The
these like
subject
super
line,
demonic
"Last
people in
night was
power,
fun."
man.
And the first line reads, "Still in torture chamber." That email got really no attention 10 years ago, but today, a 2009 email from Jeffrey Epstein is getting a lot of attention as it asks, "Where are you? You okay? I love the torture video."
To the fallout from the latest release of the Jeffrey Epstein documents, they include communications between the rich and powerful, from the co-owner of an NFL team to billionaires like Elon Musk.
CNN teams are carefully sifting through the largest and what the Justice Department says is the last batch of Jeffrey Epstein files.
Friday's release of millions of pages related to Jeffrey Epstein provided a closer look at his connection to world elites from Hollywood to Washington, Wall Street to Buckingham Palace and beyond.
I know, right? Right.
Now I'm gonna be like perfectly honest here. I don't think that Trump or Elon actually were privy, like were involved in any of this, to be perfectly honest. Like, the purpose of the entire Epstein thing is actually pretty easy to understand. It's blackmail material. Like, in order to be initiated into the circle, you have to do something that gives us leverage over you. That way you can't leave or betray us, because in doing so you destroy yourself. This is not a particularly unique thing in history. This is actually something that cults have been doing for quite a while. Now, also, you have to remember that you don't have to be a religion to be a cult, but cults often are religions. Like, there is a large overlap between cult and religion, but not all religions are cults, and not all cults are religions, right? But like I mean, that was one of the purposes of, for example, like what's a good example? The Manichaeans, for example, were notorious for engaging in all kinds of depraved acts, because it turns out, since the flesh is evil and you're not the flesh, then it didn't really matter what you did in the flesh, because your soul has no connection to your body. Really fucking stupid belief system. But the Manichaeans were notorious for all kinds of depraved behavior, and they were one of the better well-known ones. There are a number of mystery cults that did similar things, where again you enter into the mystery cult and you end up having to do something in the mystery cult, which is why it stays a mystery, because you can't afford for what you've done to get out of the cult. And so they don't write anything down, because it is that social bomb that you had to activate in order to enter the cult that is the check and balance, if you will, to make sure you stay in line. It's the same reason why a certain religion that I can't talk without, by name without getting sued, but if you watch South Park, you can probably figure out which one it is, has a mockery of the Catholic rite of confession, where you end up going to a false form of confession, which is then recorded. That way, if you leave the cult, they can destroy your reputation and take your family away from you if you have kids in the cult, because then they'll use that to destroy your reputation in court. They, that being said, this is again what's going on here. Yeah, sure, you have a lot of these people are probably, you know, perverts and fucking evil people themselves, obviously, because a good person's not going to join a cult that does this. But the purpose of the again the Little St. James Island was blackmail material. It was to make sure that everyone was stuck in this interlocking system that no one had absolute control over, but everyone had loyalty to. That way, no one could actually completely break from the system because everyone has dirt on everyone else. And the one with the main master key on that dirt, you can guess what yeah, you may or may not have killed himself. But yeah. So this isn't particular. This is not a historically unique thing. This thing has happened, but it just has never happened in this scale outside. You know, in the West, it has happened to similar scales in other particular cultures. Um, Specifically cultures that for some reason the left loves, even though they're not compatible with the left. But you know,
Big John
So-called
Sawyer,
news
really?
anchors and their
Thank you for the
newsrooms
bits,
for a
man. Thank you.
decade blacklisted this topic. They conditioned
oh yeah, that's what I was going to because that's why I don't think Trump was involved in any of this. Because first of all, he cut off ties with Epstein before Epstein, you know, got busted the second time. Because the first time he got busted, he got a sweetheart deal with a judge that was just completely unfucking, completely un like reasonable. It's like it boggles the mind that they could have gotten away with like such giving him such a light sentence. But you know, Donald Trump ended up cutting all ties with the guy. You can't exactly do that with someone who has blackmail of this variety on you. Whereas with Elon Musk, Elon never actually got onto the island. And yeah, sure, there is evidence that he wanted to go to the island. But we have to remember Elon is also a man who has a difficult time reading people. He's autistic. And it's entirely possible that he didn't actually fully understand or even know what illegal activity was being done on the island. In fact, actually, hold on. Funny enough, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia actually has a good point about just going to the island, which is why just having gone to the island isn't sufficient to get a guilty verdict. Because if you're going to perform an illegal activity, you need to also you are going to cover it with legal activity as your face in order to obscure who is actually committing a crime. It's not exactly an uncommon thing to do. Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Okay. Hopefully, I don't get copyright claims for this.
You guys can help me with my thing. We got to shred a bunch of documents.
What? What are you talking about, man?
Well, the thing of it is, it may or may not have been the official beverage supplier of Jeffrey Epstein.
What?
Jeffrey Epstein?
Yeah, but before you judge me, know this. Yes, I was on the sex island, but only for the snorkeling. I didn't know anything about the kid stuff. No, look, 95% of what went on down there was not pedophilia.
Oh, yeah?
No, the other 5%, that sullied the whole operation.
Yeah, it sure did,
sure
Frank.
did.
Yeah.
Well, you know, it ain't just me. You guys' names are on those documents too, remember?
What? Still?
God damn it!
Son of a
Frank,
bitch.
No, I don't have time for this.
Well, come on and be quick. It's only a couple boxes.
Ah, shit. God damn it.
Yeah, and it's like if you've ever like again, so it's not just that someone's name is associated in one way, shape, or another with someone that establishes that they are guilty of the same things. You not always you know people are surprised all the fucking time about what the people that are in their lives end up doing that they didn't know about. And yeah, uh, if you just put yourself in the position of someone who's going to do something evil, and you start to understand the decisions that evil people make. Like for example, um, what's a good example? Like the Paris truck attacks. I actually knew like not from firsthand experience. I wasn't like, talking with anyone who was planning this, but like I could figure out that, for example, the truck attacks in Paris were likely not the Paris part, but the truck attack parts in Europe, because you just have to ask yourself, okay, if you're a jihadi and you want to cause a mass casualty incident because you believe that if you commit jihad, you are going to be rewarded by God in heaven, right? What is a way that is non-committal, or that is fully committal, not non-committal, fully committal, but less likely to get you caught, and therefore your plan to be rewarded by God foiled? Well, if you drive a 2-ton like vehicle into a crowd, that that qualifies the jihad, the terror attack. So it was obvious that eventually that was going to happen. And I was not the only person who saw this coming. Like before the truck attacks happened, there were people who figured out that that was probably going to eventually start being a thing. And it's the same thing with like knife attacks. Knife attacks weren't exactly hard to predict. There's a reason why they're common in China, because if you don't have access to a gun, and you want to cause a mass casualty incident, well, it turns out knives are really, really fucking dangerous. So if you all you have to do to understand a lot of people when they do evil things is just change the motivation in your head and think, if this was my motivation, how would I go about doing that thing? And it becomes remarkably not strange, but remarkably what would you say, mundane, how it is evil people actually think, and therefore how frustrating it is that the people tasked with actually dealing with evil people won't address the obvious elephant in the room, because it's not hard to figure out oftentimes. Oftentimes it turns out evil is not exactly clever, it's just using basic human intelligence to do something nefarious. And here I have a sneaking suspicion that that's Always Sunny in Philadelphia clip is probably true. There is probably a number of people who ended up going to that island, did actually never knew about what was going on, and then ended up being potentially implicated just by being on that island, which may also explain, I disagreed with this decision, by the way, and I have consistently disagreed with this decision, may have been the reason why the Trump administration didn't want to release the files, because of how many people who could be innocent could potentially be implicated in the files. Again, I disagree with that, because I want a full investigation into all this shit. And I want anyone who is involved in this like nefarious cult behavior to be punished to the fullest extent of the law. Now, is that a fever dream? Probably. It's probably not going to happen, to be perfectly honest. But you can't claim to want to drain the swamp if you're not going to attack the vector by which the swamp has control over the systems. It is really that simple. So again, just because I want the swamp drained, I kind of want this all to be investigated too. So it's like, but yeah, I don't think Trump was actually involved in any of this stuff, and I don't think Elon Musk was all that aware of what was going on. Because again, as Rode just said in the chat, it's like, yeah, you can see him being too naive of people, because he's autistic, to really truly get what was going on. And in fact, in some of the emails where Elon is mentioned, that seems to be exactly the case, where people are annoyed at Elon because he doesn't seem to understand what it is they're actually offering him. And so their attempt to bribe him doesn't fucking work in some of these emails. Because again, he's autistic, he has different motivations, and he just doesn't understand what's being offered to him, so the bait doesn't work. But anyway, so let's get back to the video. I've already somehow made this into a 40-minute video.
You to live in ignorance. They called it a conspiracy. They called me and so many others dangerous for even looking.
Yep. And then you have over here, right?
And again, they call you crazy, they call you dangerous to discredit you. That way, your legitimate concerns cannot be brought to light, and they do not get attention.
We're just gonna do a little another look over here, and we have the from Project Veritas. For those of you that don't know about this was 6 years ago.
Yeah, honestly, this woman has every right. I have seen this video. This woman has every fucking right to be just livid at the fact that this story got away from her. First of all, because if they were allowed to go run with this, they could have cracked this case earlier. And yeah, sure, they would have had to deal with lawyers, but they would have been potentially able to crack this earlier and potentially save a number of people from unspeakable trauma, to be perfectly honest. And there is also the thing of like, why shouldn't she get credit for finding this thing? Like, there have been people. Like, I'll let this part play.
And this is just when the tape was leaked, but this tape came out from before.
I've had the story for 3 years. I've had this interview with Virginia Roberts. We would not put it on the air. First of all, I was told, who's Jeffrey Epstein? No one knows who that is. This is a stupid story. Then the palace.
So this is a hot mic. So this wasn't like, she didn't know that this was being recorded. Somebody recorded this like in the studio and then leaked it.
Found.
And also, by the way, no one's heard of this guy. That's by design. Like, if you're going to do something like this, you do not want the linchpin of your operation to be in the public eye, for the very obvious reason of, if he's in the public eye, then he's under scrutiny. You want someone who doesn't seem, on the face of it, connected to everything. And that's exactly what ended up happening to be the case with Epstein, where it's like, now, looking at it from after the fact, it's very obvious, oh yeah, this guy has ties to fucking British, Israeli, and American intelligence agencies, and he has ties to other intelligence agencies. It's like, okay, yeah, fair enough. He has all these connections with businesses. He's all these connections with charities, with non-governmental organizations. He's obviously this node, a nexus point from which all these connections flow and stem. But he's not the kind of person. He wasn't in a position where that would be obvious to someone unless they were already in on some of the information, whether by some information got leaked, like in WikiLeaks, or someone came out and said something. That's the whole purpose of picking someone like that, because you don't want the actual nexus of your conspiracy. If you're going to commit to a conspiracy like this, you don't want that to be someone that's in the public for a reason.
Out that we had her whole allegations about Prince Andrew and threatened us a million different ways. We were so afraid we wouldn't be able to interview Kate and Will that also quashed the story. And then Alan Dershowitz was also implicated in it because of the planes. She told me everything. She had pictures. She had everything. She was in hiding for 12 years. We convinced her to come out. We convinced her to talk to us. It was unbelievable what we had. Clinton. We had everything. I tried for 3 years to get it on, to no avail, and now it's all coming out, and it's like these new revelations, and I freaking had all of it. I'm so pissed right now. Like, every day I get more and more pissed because I'm just like, oh my God, what we had was unreal. Other women backing it up. Hey, yep. Brad Edwards, the attorney, 3 years ago, saying there will come a day when we will realize Jeffrey Epstein was the most prolific pedophile this country has ever known. And I had it all 3 years ago.
So she's mad she didn't get the fame? I mean, you'd be mad too if you had all of that research, you did all of that, you had the story, and then they scuttled it. Yeah, you'd be mad too. You'd be like, yo, I had the story already, and you guys told me it was bullshit.
Yeah, again, this goes back to my thing of, yes, you should actually be selfish. You should be actually looking out for your own self-interest, because no one else is gonna fucking do it for you, do that for you. But yeah, why shouldn't she be mad that she didn't get the credit for this if she's the one who found out all this? Yeah, sure, she couldn't come forward, and that alone is a reason to be pissed. But again, if she had been allowed to take the credit and just go on and say this, then we could have gotten a lot of this done sooner. The investigations could have happened sooner, and maybe things might have been different. Maybe some people who were, hurt because this investigation didn't happen, maybe, right? She has every right to be mad about this. She and her team did the work. They should have gotten the credit. The company should have been able to let them take the risk and then actually go forward with it. Now, granted, I say this because I'm not the one whose pocket is, potentially at, danger here. I could definitely not afford a lawsuit from any of these people, for the fucking crown. You kidding me? Right? But, yeah, no, she has every right to be mad about this. If she's the one if she and her team are the ones who found this out, and then someone else comes and leaks this for her because her employers basically put her under a gag to not talk about this, she has every right to be pissed about that. But she couldn't say what she knew. She doesn't get the credit for being the one who found out all this shit, and the fact that it was never brought to light. So again, justice couldn't be served. There's many different reasons why she has the right to be angry, and the fact she doesn't get the credit for the work that she and her team did is a legitimate reason for her to be angry. And anyone who is saying that it's not is being disingenuous.
Her whole allegations about Prince Andrew and
Like, this goes back, like, so far, right?
For all that is here, there has not been one single public investigation of any of this, not from local police, not from the FBI, and that has to be the big question. Not for Podesta or for pizza parlor owners, but for law enforcement. Based on what may be or may not be here, the big question is, why hasn't any investigation taken place?
Well, 10 years later, no investigation ever took place. It's a failure of a complicit government.
Yep.
And also of a corporate media that didn't just ignore this evil. They helped to cover it up and keep it operating in the shadows. See, by refusing to engage honestly in 2016, by choosing mockery over investigation, by silencing questions instead of asking them, they created the very environment
Say elves are goyim.
where this evil could thrive. See, they didn't kill bad information as they pretended. They guaranteed it would survive. Censored the way that I was because my reporting was false. I was censored because it was dangerous. Dangerous to narratives, dangerous to reputations, dangerous to a media culture that had grown comfortable acting as a gatekeeper rather than a watchdog. See, the unspoken rule was simple. Some questions, not because they're wrong, no, but because they lead to the truth, at least in the form of a cabal of elites and powerful people who delight in the physical and sexual abuse of children is real. Remember how we started. Epstein is real. Remember, sexual abuse of children is real. Remember how we started.
Oh,
Abuse of
God.
children
God damn it, Leaflit.
is real. Remember how we started. Epstein is Pizzagate. But the other reality it's time to accept is much more.
I don't know that I get that that's rhetorical framing, but again, I personally prefer things like clarity when we're talking Pizzagate and the Pizzagate thing and the Epstein thing could very well be like the same thing, but it is entirely possible that they're two subparts of the same system. And it's entirely possible, at least in theory, that they could have been completely disconnected. Do I think that that's the case? Hell no. I do not. You could potentially try to make them separate things, but I think that if the Pizzagate thing actually was real, and I think that there is good reason to think that it very well likely was, then they are probably actually connected. But I'm just saying, you could, in theory, see someone try to make that case.
And much bigger than just Jeffrey Epstein.
Who the fuck is Leaflit?
I have noticed that a lot of the people in her chat are pointing out the sheer number of illegals that they've allowed in the Biden administration, and a lot of the kids ended up going missing from those illegal families. Is that related? Possibly. I haven't really thought about that, and it's not something I'm going to comment on right now. But it is something for me to noodle over, though. I'm going to have to think about that, because maybe there is a thing.
Yeah, anyway, shit's crazy.
God damn it, Leaflit. Okay. Yeah, so, I feel personally vindicated about that, because I was one of the people who was like, I can't prove it, but I feel very suspicious about the activity that is being presented on throughout this entire thing. Something is wrong. So I feel very vindicated about that. I still can't prove anything, but I definitely feel vindicated about my suspicions being, I think, proven to be completely rational. So yeah, I did kind of want to see that, because yeah. I think Leaflit is totally right to feel that she's vindicated.